Treasury announces fossil fuel energy guidance for multilateral development banks. August 16, 2021. Washington. Today, the U.S. Department of the Treasury issued fossil fuel energy guidance for multilateral development banks, MDBs, which is key guidance in response to President Biden's Executive Order 14008 on tackling the climate crisis at home and abroad announced earlier this year. In its guidance, Treasury advocates for MDB investments prioritizing clean energy, innovation, and energy efficiency, which will help achieve a clean and sustainable future consistent with the development goals of the Paris Agreement. U.S. Secretary of the Treasury Janet L. Yellen previewed Treasury's MDB guidance at the April 2021 G7 Leaders Summit on Climate and more recently discussed this with heads of the MDBs in July 2021. Today, the United States takes bold, proactive steps to address the climate crisis by working with our international partners to establish a clear path to end multilateral development banks' support for fossil fuels except in exceptional circumstances while helping developing countries build a strong and sustainable future, said Secretary Yellen. Addressing the climate crisis is no longer business as usual and requires significant investments in clean energy. As the largest shareholder across the MDB system, the United States takes a leadership role with the new Treasury guidance that advocates for MDB staff to assess options for clean energy, innovation, and energy efficiency, and to only consider fossil fuels if less carbon-intensive options unfeasible. The guidance advocates for non-fossil fuel energy projects financed by the MDBs, while maintaining some flexibility for developing countries to support limited fossil fuel projects critical to their development objectives if certain criteria are met. During the July meeting with MDB heads, Secretary Yellen requested MDBs to rapidly align MDB portfolios with the Paris Agreement, prioritize innovation and impact to match the scale of the climate crisis, develop ambitious capital mobilization rates consistent with broader climate goals, develop targets for green bonds, the partnerships with financial intermediaries, double the current $40 billion pledge for private sector financing focused upon climate adaptation, and align policy-based operations with climate goals. The Treasury guidance will help MDBs meet these targets. By ending its support for direct investment in coal and oil projects and encouraging cleaner energy options, Treasury's guidance supports poor and vulnerable countries, conflict-affected states, and small island developing states in meeting their development goals while applying rigorous standards to reduce overall emissions and achieve the goals of the Paris Agreement. The United States looks forward to working with MDB shareholders, management, and staff to bring clean and sustainable energy to the developing world. For more information, please see an FAQ. FAQ for new fossil fuel energy guidance for the multilateral development banks. What did the U.S. Department of the Treasury announce today? As part of President Biden's first executive order on climate announced earlier this year, Treasury is releasing its fossil fuel energy guidance for multilateral development banks, MDBs. In its guidance, Treasury is advocating for MDB investments that prioritize clean energy, innovation, and energy efficiency, to achieve a clean and sustainable future that is consistent with their development goals and the goals of the Paris Agreement. The guidance directs MDBs to oppose oil and coal projects, and to support natural gas investments only if certain strict criteria are met. Treasury developed this policy through an extensive interagency process and via consultations with various stakeholders and will continue to advocate for MDB staff to assess options for clean energy, innovation and energy efficiency first, and to only consider fossil fuels if less carbon-intensive options are unfeasible. Why was the fossil fuel energy guidance developed? The MDB fossil fuel guidance is a result of President Biden's first executive order on climate, Executive Order 14008, which directs Treasury and other agencies to identify steps through which the United States can promote ending international financing of carbon-intensive fossil fuel-based energy while simultaneously advancing sustainable development and a green recovery. Is this policy the same as the National Security Council and White House guidance? The National Security Council asked agencies to develop their own policies that are either consistent with or more stringent than the White House-level guidance. This is Treasury's policy for the MDBs. How will this guidance help countries achieve Paris alignment? We expect that the United States will advocate for clean energy and energy efficiency approaches that will help countries ultimately achieve Paris alignment. What is the view on coal? We will strongly oppose coal energy projects across the entire coal value chain, for example, mining, transport, and power generation. What is the view on oil? We will also oppose oil energy projects across the oil value chain, including the processing of transport fuels, for example, a diesel refinery. We would only make exceptions to our opposition to oil projects in rare circumstances, such as in humanitarian crises or as backup generation for clean-off-grid energy systems. What is the view on natural gas? We will oppose upstream natural gas projects, for example, gas exploration, but can support midstream and downstream natural gas projects, provided certain specific criteria are all met. The project supports poor and vulnerable developing countries, which we define as IDA-eligible countries, including IDA blend countries, fragile and conflict-affected states, and small island developing states. The project is accompanied by a credible analysis that demonstrates that there is neither an economically nor technically feasible alternative, including renewable energy, nor means of achieving the objectives of the project through other means, for example, through energy efficiency. An example would be that there is no economically competitive way to provide baseload power, which remains the case in some circumstances. The project has a significant positive impact on energy security, energy access, or development. The project is aligned with the goals of the Paris Agreement. Will the guidance support other technologies to reduce emissions from existing facilities? We are open to supporting abatement technologies, including methane abatement and carbon capture utilization and storage, CCUS, or efficiency improvements for existing oil and gas assets, provided that they a. do not expand the asset's generation capacity and b. do not extend its life. Will the guidance support coal decommissioning projects? Yes, we are encouraging the MDBs to explore potential projects for coal decommissioning. How is the guidance applied to heat generation projects? We recognize that coal plays a significant role as a heating source in some regions and the substantial harm caused by dirty cooking fuels. We are open to supporting oil and gas projects as coal alternatives for household cooking and heating. We may also consider oil and gas projects for other heat generation purposes, for example, industrial uses, where there are no other feasible alternatives. How does the guidance apply to indirect financing through policy-based operations and financial intermediaries? These types of projects represent a large portion of MDB financing and are included in our approach. For policy-based operations, we intend to oppose projects where the policy reforms are targeted towards and likely to expand the fossil fuel sector, excluding gas in IDA-eligible countries. For financial intermediaries, we will determine our position based on how the bank or other intermediary is likely to use the specific MDB funds relative to our overarching guidance. How are middle-income countries supposed to transition away from coal if you do not support MDB financing of natural gas? Some countries may use natural gas as they transition from dirtier fuels to cleaner fuels. However, middle-income countries generally have better market access than poorer economies and could finance natural gas investments independently, consistent with their domestic climate plans. In addition, we want to focus our limited development assistance on helping countries invest in a clean technology future.